Since 1948, the sounds of sports car racing have echoed off glacier-carved hillsides at the southern tip of Seneca Lake. The tiny town of Watkins, Glen packs a motorsports history bigger than itself, the beginning and then ending of racing on public roads, and with that, the start of bespoke road circuits designed for speed. The sky blue steel lining the track here has decades of stories to tell, those from the golden era of Formula One, IMSA, IndyCar, and NASCAR. Today, one of the world's greatest circuits adds another series to its schedule. Welcome to Watkins Glen International, and welcome to Grid Life at the Glen. Friday morning, Grid Life Touring Cup qualifying. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Greg Kramer. Greg, welcome aboard. This is my home track, my favorite place on planet Earth. I cannot wait to see the action this weekend.
Yeah, you've just been lit since we left CMP knowing what's coming, and it's totally understandable, folks. This track is about as history-laden as they get. It's special, it's fast, it's big consequence. This is a true old-school racetrack with immense challenges. When they repaved it in 2015, the paving job they did, even now, 8 years later, the track retains amazing grip, so you can carry incredible speed around this place. And there are a few tracks that are as pretty and picturesque as this one, sitting up on top of the hill, looking down over that little town of Watkins Glen and beautiful Seneca Lake. This place is special.
It really is special. Of course, Grid Life Live is powered by Hyundai N. Hyundai N, never just drive. And Falcon, the official tire of Grid Life Track Battle. 3.4 miles around here, Greg, 11 turns. We've got cameras at turn 1, the S's, the bus stop, turn 10. This is a big, big racetrack. It took a lot of effort and energy that is still actively ongoing to build out this live stream. This is the biggest job that they've ever done. Appreciate their efforts. I know it's been a really hard weekend so far, but this is an exceptional road racing facility. You got to capture all the corners because, first of all, it's hard to see them all because there's so much elevation that the track disappears over crests, and a lot of the corners are extremely consequential. The bus stop in particular, it's the farthest away from where we're sitting on the front straightaway, Greg, but you make so much speed over there. Jumping those curbs, it's such a critical corner.
And it's just immensely entertaining. You know, you watch the cars that are just hopping those curbs. A couple of drivers that have done track descriptions have said you have to just murder the curbs over there to really get through there quick. The other thing to be very aware of at this track is that the corners are a lot longer duration than you might think. So you've got to get into the corners fast. So you have to be willing to approach the corners, and the guardrails are close. So you need to really cinch it up. You carry a lot of entry speed, but then you have to employ patience, because what will either pitch you into a spin and maybe a wreck or make you slow is getting a little too greedy and trying to square up and get to the throttle early. And at the very least, you're going to lose all of your mid-quarter speed and come out slow. So you turn in with a lot of speed and then you wait. You just get to that limit and just stay there and let that corner wrap up. Then you start to go. If you try and get to the throttle too soon, it'll either end up in an incident or you're just going to be really slow. And a lot of the times you're coming out of corners here and you're climbing. So if you get it wrong, then you're going to be super slow because you're going up a hill that everybody else is getting right.
This is Grid Life Touring Cup. This is our Power to Weight single-class road racing series. Sprint racing. We'll have our first race later this afternoon. This is qualifying. This sets the grid for our first race. There are over 50 cars on our entry list, Greg. It is an enormous entry list, and there's a lot of diversity. See, rolling down pit lane now, there is David Rudzinski's Chevy S10. It's powered by a Honda K24 under the hood of that car, or truck, I should say. There's Porsche Caymans, S2000s, M3s, Corvettes, motor-swapped FRSs. There's so much diversity here in this series, Greg, and there was a lot of discussion this season about the parity between all these different cars and types of cars. And one of the challenges for some of the lighter, lower-powered cars is coming out of slow corners, what we call digs. Not a lot of those here. You're carrying so much speed that you're never really slowing down all that much. So I think we're going to see some probably better parity than we were expecting for it being such a fast track. I do think that some of the lower powered cars will run into a drag problem, especially at the end of the back straightaway. Cars like James Houghton's car, his Acura TSX, that's built to be a bullet. It's built very aerodynamically and for top-end speed. That car might be doing 140 miles an hour to the bus stop. Others might be only doing 125. Right. So we're going to see some pretty big speed disparity over there too.
Well, that's true. And if you're a less horsepower car with the long straights here, you want somebody that you can draft with, that you can tuck in, have them help you as you go down the long straight so that you don't run into that wall of air with a slightly underpowered car. But, you look at this, and this is essentially a momentum track. There are a couple of snug corners, but for the most part, you're up always into momentum, and if you've got a lighter weight car, you can flow speed through the corners, so you can do very well here. One of the interesting corners, turn 9 is one of the trickiest corners that you can imagine, as it's a completely blind turn in. It's the one that you see the cars coming into. It's a blind turn in, and right as you commit, it flattens out, and essentially it almost goes off camber because you come over a little rise, and that barrier is right there. If you turn in too soon, you carry too much speed in, you miss your turn-in point. It's a corner where you can really get in trouble there. Talking to Tom O'Gorman, who's raced here quite a bit, he said the turn is technically an increasing radius corner. Once you turn in, it opens up, but it drives very much like a decreasing radius corner because of that very tendency there, and the fact that you tend to push out if you don't square it a little bit more. Lots of little nuance like that here. And then the S's that we're looking at the entry to here, that run up through the S's here, the elevation, no TV camera is ever going to give you a real sense of it. It is a steep climb, and look at how close those barriers are. There are spots, it's a street course, and it's fast.
It really is fast, and this is one of the things we talked about coming into this event for GRIDLIFE Touring Cup car in particular. When you leave turn 1 at the very far left of that shot, you get back on throttle, you don't lift for 30 seconds. You're on power up this 110-foot climb through the S's, all the way down the backstretch until the bus stop, and you just go, go, go. It is such a crazy fast racetrack. Even the bus stop, you go down a gear or two, but you're sailing over the curbs and not really slowing down all that much. So it really is a high momentum track, high aero track in a lot of places, especially in the boot, which we don't have any trackside cams down there. We'll have drone coverage for you there later today. But it is just a phenomenally fast track. And one of the cars on track, Greg, is the number 82 of Eric Catil.
Yeah.
The last couple months have been quite the ride for Eric Catil. Back after Circuit of the Americas, on the way home, in the middle of the night, they had a road accident with that truck and trailer. It ended up upside down in a ditch on the side of the highway in Tennessee. And despite all the wreckage and carnage of the truck and trailer, the car mostly unscathed. And Eric Catil, with the power of the community behind him, has put that car back together, put a new windshield in it, banged out some of the dents that were in it, and he's back on track. That is just a phenomenal display of community support, and for Eric Catil, the perseverance he has had from the 2021 crash he had at Road America to rebuilding this brand new car all from scratch. He told me, he goes, I couldn't do this again if I had to. And he almost had to do it again. Yeah. So we're very grateful for that. Grateful that he and his dad are safe, but the car is back and racing this weekend.
Well, and the key word in that story was this community. They are fierce competitors on the track, but often they are very close friends, pretty much to a person throughout the paddock. And so when he had the incident, the amount of help that was rushed to him just from the community, just to get him back to where he could start working on the car, was absolutely amazing. And it's great to have him here. We got Jeremy Swenson, who won the championship 2 years ago, Eric, who won it the previous year. They're all here, and some awfully stout competition as well, a huge field. And there's a look at Eric, and that car does not look worse for the wear, and he is going to be wheeling it and having a blast.
And he's one of under 10 drivers in this 50-car field that has experience driving here, which I think is going to be worth a lot this weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're going to see Eric driving this car maybe even a little bit faster. Now that it's got a couple dents in it, it's not quite as perfect anymore.
There you go.
That's going to be the fastest race car on this racetrack, I guarantee it, at some point this weekend.
And you brought up a good point about the aero here. As I said, a lot of these corners here are long duration and they're quick. Well, that's where aero makes a huge difference. And if you're trying to run a car to be a little bit slippery and not have a lot of aero, this is the kind of track where it's going to hurt. Yeah, it's got a lot of grip, so you can really hustle the car a bit, but that aero really gets it planted and gets you working around. I mean, look at the duration there of the outer loop or turn 5. It goes on forever. You drop down into the laces of the boot, it goes on forever. That's just the nature of the corners here. And so downforce and having the power to be able to push through that downforce, that can be a big, big differential here.
So again, we are qualifying here. We're working on timing and scoring. Again, the rules say that we have to hide it for a little while. while, but we'll have that timing and scoring up on screen. The reason for that, there is rewards weight in this session. So the top 3 in qualifying will get 3%, 2%, 1% weight to carry in race number 1. So the thought was, well, if they know where they are on the racetrack, maybe they could back it down a little bit and not get that rewards weight. So as soon as we get those times up, we'll show them on the timing and scoring for you. And we have a pretty quick morning here. Again, we're going to do GLTC qualifying, and then we'll break for lunch and be back with Drift for the first time ever at Watkins Glen International. So that is going to be absolutely very, very exciting. There is our timing and scoring so far, and the fastest driver in at least the first lap was Tyler Pappas, who we saw at Lime Rock Park last year for his first ever GRIDLIFE Touring Cup weekend. And a 2:07.669 is the fastest time we've seen so far. And Greg, that's a quick time, but we were talking before that we expected 2:07s to kind of be the peak. We're not at the peak yet, and that's already just the first lap.
Yeah, this place is deceptively fast. I got a feeling he's got some track knowledge here. He came out and ran Lime Rock, which means he's a Northeastern guy probably, and has some track knowledge. Some of the regulars who may not have the knowledge here. I mean, Jeremy Swenson already at a low 2:08, as is Matt Waldbaum, Coutil right there as well. Interesting thing, you talked about the diversity, talking about the different cars, but with these cars, what you see sometimes is not what you get. You mentioned the engine swabs, but there's a Subaru BRZ with a V8 Chevy engine in it. There's a BMW with a big V8 Chevy engine horned into it. All of these cars, it's a pretty open rule set because it's all mitigated just by power to weight and then by modifiers for size of tire and aero. And so, you're looking at these cars and if you go, boy, that just doesn't sound what I would think it would sound like. There's probably a very good reason for it, but the amazing thing is particularly at the end of the race, you look at the race long times, they're all so close because the heavier, more powerful cars will run their tires off a little quicker, and it makes it really exciting.
Here's a look at the boot section, added in 1971, turns 6 through 9. 6 is the left-hander at the top of the screen, then it's 7 at the toe, and then you head back to the heel, which is right at the bottom of the screen, turn number 8. We're going to have aerial coverage of this corner, or this set of corners all weekend long. And while it is a newer section added to the racetrack, Greg, it actually retains some of the character of the old course. There's almost no runoff except for at turn 8 underneath us. 6 and 7, they're treacherous corners, especially in the wet.
Oh, very much so. I mean, the laces of the boot, as they call turn 6, and there you can see that shot, that outer loop into the laces, how long those corners run. And the laces, both the exit of the outer loop and all the way through the laces, you're falling down a hill, right? So that's where that patience really comes in, because if you get a little bit too eager and get to throttle too soon, you're just going to push wide. And then if you lift, you could snap into and have an incident, or you could push off the track. So that's where that enter fast and then be patient. Just find that edge, that limit, ride it until you can get that sight line really figured out, then squeeze the throttle as you unwind the wheel. If you give throttle when you still got input into the steering wheel, you're just going to induce push, right? So you've got to be patient on this track, but you've got to be willing, and this is the gut checkpoint. Enter with a lot of speed. The other thing is when you exit there, look how quickly you're immediately starting to turn into the outer loop. So if you over hustle through that last part of the chicane and have a bobble there, you're going to be slow for this entire run. But more importantly, if it snaps out on you, those barriers are really close again. So this is one of those tracks, a lot of consequence to this place. But when you get a lap right here, there are a few places that it's more satisfying.
It's such a smooth racetrack also with that repave. It's just very smooth, very fast, very grippy as well.
And I mean, you look at here, turn 8, that, in the bottom right of your screen, that's about 110 degree corner, but it's not tight, right? It's long. I mean, that's how this track was built, all these long corners. And there's a great look at the laces or the downhill turn 6 center of your screen there. And again, you don't really see the elevation drop you have. And then when you get down into the toe of the boot, Kyle, it climbs right as you come off the brakes. So you can actually attack it a little bit more aggressively than you may think at first blush, because the hill goes up, gravity helps you a little bit getting around that turn.
Here's Jeremy Swenson working his way through turn number 10, the 2021 GRIDLIFE Touring Cup champion. Came up a couple spots short last year, currently leads the points. He's had a real successful year so far. But the drivers that were chasing him, Matt Waldbaum in particular from ASM, they said, you know what, Jeremy Swenson's beating us too much. We're going to go back to the drawing board. They built a head. They put a new head on this K24 for Matt Waldbaum, and he's right behind on the lap times right now. But Tyler Pappas still
look at
on.
Jeremy just dipped into the 207s.
There he goes, and he's a 10th back. But Tyler Pappas still on provisional pole. Matan Rosenberg just jumped to 4th. Luke McGrew, another driver that has experience here, up to 5th. Catil, Curley, Jeff Preston, Joel Morrison, and Austin Hurdle round out your top 10 so far.
And I haven't had a chance to see Matan's car. I talked to him, but I didn't see the car, so I don't know. He was talking about getting some aero bits on that car and, paying the weight penalty a little bit, for the modifiers, but to get some aero on the car. And if he's got it here, it'll really pay dividends. But he's really having a great year. But, you mentioned Paul Curley, and another guy who's just been spectacular this year is Luke McGrew, off to an incredibly, successful start. Luke second in the points, Curley third. And James Houghton, if he wouldn't have had windshield fogging at CMP, I think he would have been very strong there and been right up in that points battle.
Another driver that is in the field here this weekend is Scott Heckert, who's driving Jacob Bodenauer's Chevrolet Corvette, a brand new build to GLTC. Scott Heckert, very experienced here at this racetrack, actually won a couple of NASCAR K&N Pro Series races here in 2014 and 2015, and is also time attacking the stock car that he won those races in here this weekend. So he's down in the mid-20s right now working out a new build, but if that gets sorted, he's going to be really dangerous, I think, towards the top of the field. He's got a lot of pace, I'm sure.
And he's driven some GT4 prototype-looking cars in World Challenge here as well. So, he's got a lot of track knowledge, and that can make a big difference. And another guy I think keep your eye on here is Jason Saney, who is here in his number 73 Porsche Cayman. Jason was an absolute front runner back in the glory days of the touring car class in World Challenge 10 or so years ago, and he is still really quick. And I think that car, it's so slippery, but it's still got good aero. Once he gets things dialed in, he could be a serious player here.
Certainly could. Another driver that's new this weekend at GRIDLIFE Touring Cup is Ben Thorne of Gears and Gasoline. His Honda Civic has been converted from Falcon Club TR to GRIDLIFE Touring Cup trim, and he's working through it right now, kind of getting used to it, but down the order a little bit. But he's going to be quick. That car is set up kind of similar to Catil's, where it's a flat-tuned Honda Civic, so it should be pretty quick once he gets that comfortable in it. But his first weekend, I'm sure he's going to probably take it pretty easy, especially because we're expecting some weather, Greg. Not a good idea to go way out there your first event weekend and try to run right up at the front, especially at a track that you've never been to and in a series you've never driven in before.
It's one incredibly well turned out car too, isn't it? It's immaculate, looks great. And here is a look at the number 41 we were talking about once again of James Houghton, that Acura TSX. Really a rocket in a straight line. You can see does not have a ton of aero on that car, so it gets moving and it really runs well up on the top end.
Well, he's down in 21st right now, and this is not the qualifying I expected for James Houghton. This car, in theory, should be one of the top 5 fastest cars here this weekend, and he has not really had a good representative lap. And because of the way that GRIDLIFE Touring Cup weekends work, this sets the grid for race 1. Race 2 is set by fastest lap from race 1. So it's pretty critical that you get a good qualifying run, because if you're buried midfield, Greg, you can't even back out to get yourself a good lap to set up for race 2. So it's going to be tough if he can't get a good lap in.
Yeah, you've really got a big picture these weekends, because at first blush you say, okay, it's 4 15-minute races with a 15-minute qualifying session, so you just go hammer it, right? No, because you've got to look at how the race you're in affects your next race, where you start, that sort of thing. So you've got to be playing that mental game the whole time about, all right, I'm mired in the pack. Do I want to start here again for the next race? Because fast lap in this race decides where I start in the next race. So you may want to back off a little bit, give yourself some room, maybe even let a couple guys get by you, get a nice gap, throw in a flyer so that you can start higher up. Little things like that you've really got to be on top of here, because that's how you can actually make your way into the championship battle, by being really smart. Yeah, you got to be fast, but you've got to be able to big picture it and play that end game.
And it is busy out there as Jeremy Swenson goes to the top of the board at 207.603. Paul Curley, 207.004, provisional pole for the 45. Now we're seeing some quicker laps trip in at the 207 mark. We're going to be in the 206s, I think, if we can get one more good lap in there, Greg, right on the edge there.
Well, we were talking about, before this, that were we going to see 206s here in qualifying? Well, we're 4 1,000ths away from just that. And I'll tell you, the guy's really amping it up this year is Matan Rosenberg, sitting 4th right now. Up until Curley threw in that lap, he was a really solid 3rd. And you look at who he's around there: Swenson, Waldbaum, McGrew, guys who have been very fast all year long. As has Matan. He's had a couple of little mechanical issues, but the car is working, and but nobody working quite as well as Paul Curley right now, up by what, 0.6?
Yep, and there he is in the 45, working his way through the outer loop at turn number 5, following the number 7 of Luke McGrew, who's currently P6 here in qualifying. I do see that some of the times I think have been deleted. 9th place just fell off the board, and the reason why, Greg, would be track limits violations. Yep. Turns 1, 8, and 10 in particular have a ton of paved runoff. You got to keep a tire touching the curb or they're going to throw your lap out.
And Catil was right up there, and now he's shown at the back. We saw him in the pits actually waiting to go back out while we were having a look at the number 41 of Houghton. So I will be keeping an eye on things here. He's going to be able to go out and pop in a quick one. And folks, if you ever come here to the Glen and you've never been here, right where we just were watching from, as you come up out of the toe, head to the heel, as you go up the top of the hill on driver's left, there is a big hillside there, and the view you have all the way from the toe to the heel and through the laces is one of the prettiest in motorsports. And this is that corner we're talking about. Again, right as you turn in, and it's a blind approach, you're coming up the hill, you cannot see your apex or track out, so you turn in a bit on faith, and if you're off just a little bit, the track will flatten out, and the car can just side slide a little bit, and then suddenly you're staring at that wall. And right here, the exit of 11. 10 is a really fast corner, and 11 is not slow. You flow speed through there, but the exit of 11, there's a big wall right there. Just not much to give. Here's 10, and then here's 11 where you would do the pit in, but that wall sits right out there, and if you get it wrong, it can be massive here. I remember calling a World Challenge race here many years ago, and the entire BMW Bimmer World Touring Car team ended up wrecking in the exact same incident. And, well, we've done it.
2:06.729 for Paul Curley. That is an exceptional lap, and he's very comfortable out there. We saw him jumping the curbs in the bus stop, ran a little bit wide there at turn number 8, but he certainly is on it right now. Matan Rosenberg up to 2nd place, just turned 19 years old, Matan did in that 484 Corvette. Jeremy Swenson P3, and then Tyler Pappas now down to 4th. Still a strong lap, though, by that 24. He only has run with us, I believe, once before. Matt Waldbaum still clinging to P5, and again, Joel Morrison, really impressed with him. Remember the race 4 invert at CMP, did a great job hanging on. And Ryan Power, new to the series at CMP, running inside the top 10 right now.
And McGrew, who had been sort of outside of our top 15 for a long chunk of the session, who right now sits 2nd in the points, has now jumped up into 6th. So he's starting to get dialed into this track just a little bit. Jason Saney there in the 12th spot, and Zach Lavoie doing a nice job up into the top 15. And how nice is it to see Aaron Lichty here and racing again? It's been a while for that.
Yeah, Aaron Lichty is running Rob Manicheri's car, the number 325 Mazda Miata. He's here because Emil Tab is here, and Aaron told me, he goes, if Emil's here, I got to be here too. So they're both here for the first time, I believe. Aaron Lichty certainly is here for the first time, and was saying that he really wanted to get some dry laps in before the rain comes, and they have done that so far as they work their way through qualifying here. Lichty P18 right now. Jeremy Boysen is back in the number 40 Porsche Cayman. I mean, this is a who's who of GridLife Touring Cup today here, Greg. This is everybody, all the championship contenders, all the Northeastern hot shoes that we saw at Lime Rock Park last year are here. It's really going to be a fun weekend. We've had 48 cars take time so far. It's just a busy day. And the number 32 car that's out there, that used to be Gordon Makalevich's car. That's being driven by Lisa Keys here this weekend. That car is, I believe, the fastest straight line car here in the series. Faster even than Houghton's car. But it will struggle a little bit with downforce in some of the faster corners as well. So we'll see how it pans out. But James Houghton, P25, still has not gone faster to put himself up inside that top 10.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's really obviously trying to dial things in. Another guy it's nice to have here back with us is Louis Chatroup. And Matt Corrence, Mackenzie Corrence, who we've called not just in GridLife on the real racetracks, but also in the race the E Series.
Yep.
Great to have him here as well. And what's nice is this track is close enough that we get a lot of guys that are Canadian drivers that will come down and run here frequently, and that just adds to the excitement, makes it a bit more international.
Yeah, there's a handful of those both in GLTC and in Time Attack. Here's a look at Lena Chin. Love the livery on this car, easy to spot from a distance. The 917 out of the ASM camp, right up on those curbs at corner exit. And I haven't seen where Lena has tripped the timing and scoring so far, but I believe this is her first time here as well, as it is for over 40 of the competitors racing with us here. P28 for Lena right now.
And make no mistake about it, folks, this is one of those tracks where you can get up to, 9/10 in terms of hustle relatively easily. It isn't a super technical track, right? But that finding those last few half a second to even tenths of a second, because she runs a little bit wide there, a little things like that. But you have to really cinch it up here to really enter those corners fast because of how compressed the barriers are around here. This is a place where you've got to be really, willing to commit, and you have to take that as the top pro guys will tell you. You take fear and you compartmentalize it, and once that you head out on track, somehow you mentally have to take fear and just put it over here for a while and just get on with the job. And if you can't do that, you're never going to be super quick here, just by the nature of the track.
It's one of those places that when you look at a map and you drive it in Sims, it feels relatively easy to drive, but the speed comes with aggression here.
Yes.
The harder you drive it, the more you're going to be rewarded, and there's a very fine line in a lot of corners here. It's not a track where you can get away with being a little bit cautious or being careful. The bus stop in particular, you're going to gain a second by charging that harder than the next guy, and we're going to see that especially in the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship later today. That bus stop is going to be a pretty wild area for the faster cars.
And that's where really good drivers excel, because being aggressive does not necessarily mean being wild and out of control. You can be smooth and be aggressive. And, in this case, when we're talking aggressive, we just mean get to that limit and really push the limit. You still don't want to exceed it. You don't want to have the car all sloppy and sideways that slow, because this track has so much grip. The minute you exceed the slip angle, because of the amount of grip in the track, it sucks you down in terms of speed a lot quicker than some other tracks. So you've got to be really smooth here, but that doesn't mean you can't attack. And it's just attacking, finding that limit, and staying with it. Hey, there's Mr. Houghton.
Houghton up to looks like that'll be 9th place there. It looks like P8 had their time deleted, so that will move James up inside the top 10, which is good because we're running out of time here in qualifying. Only a couple minutes remaining here, Greg. So if you haven't put a time in, Aaron Lichty's time got deleted, so he'll have to go back out. And looks like Carlos Mendez has also not either scored a time or gotten a legal time. And you see Jacob Poole, he's been stuck at the bus stop almost this entire time, unfortunately.
Shame. I see Coutil now is up. I think he's about 12th, so he was able to get 14th, and was able to get a time in.
Oof.
But Houghton, see now, just slinging it around there, and he's Canadian. He doesn't live that far away, so he's got laps here. So just interesting. I don't know that he has many laps in this car here.
I'm not sure either, but I do notice he's got the NASCAR-style rear spoiler back on the car. He did have a wing on it at one point, so he's gone back to a lower downforce setup in hopes of gaining some straightaway speed, which I think is a good trade-off here, but it might mean that car could be a little sketchy in some of the faster corners, and he'll be hanging on for dear life, but he's a self-described hooligan out there.
Exactly.
So we saw him finish a race at COTA on 3 wheels, so there's not a lot he won't try to go fast.
Yeah. When we say cinch it up, as he said, I'm a wounded individual because I keep submitting myself to the trials and tribulations of racing, but he does it because in the end there's nothing more fun than getting out there and driving, and he's really good at that.
Yeah, he is really good, and he got a win at Carolina Motorsports Park as well, so that was the first one he's gotten since Mid-Ohio last year, so it had been a little while since he'd been in victory lane. And I think give him a little bit of a taste of it. I think he's hungry for more. There he is entering turn 10 again. This is one of those corners that's going to be tricky without a big rear wing on the back of the car. Whoa, you see it walk and slide there. We even did that on our Hyundai N track preview lap. Got a little bit wild there for a moment. As you come over the curb, the track flattens out a little bit.
Where do you get this wee stuff?
Well, I was the one
behind
my
hands
the
on the wheel.
So
it was a great lap. It was so fun.
It was a good time. You'll get to see that a little bit later here this weekend. We took our Hyundai Elantra N out on track for our Hyundai N track preview, and you'll get a little bit of a sneak peek of that a little later today. So it looks like Houghton might be on one more flyer if he can stick one. He did just jump up to 5th place, though, so that's a really solid lap here late in the session.
Solid lap. And the interesting thing is, in these long-duration corners, having that little extra bit of aero, I would have thought would have helped. But as you talked about, you're going to be flat aero or not all the way from the exit of 1 up into the outer loop. So I think he was thinking that's where you could maybe build a nice head of steam if you get a toe, make a nice pass into the inner loop. Where I'm concerned for him is if the weather forecast that we're seeing, one of them anyway, says there could be significant rain tomorrow. Without that extra aero, is that thing going to be tail happy? Now it's front drive, and maybe he just puts an ice racing setup on it and says, I don't care what the back end's doing, I'm just driving. We'll see.
Checkered flag here for Grid Life Touring Cup qualifying.